Algebra 2, using the quadratic formula to solve quadratics. This is Concept 11 Teacher Talk. Sometimes you'll have quadratics that won't factor, and so you can solve them using the quadratic formula, which is a configuration of the constants a, b, and c. So that's always good to be able to pick out in a quadratic equation. And that's our first question. What are the a, b, and c values? Well, who knows with the quadratic in this form? So the first thing you need to do is rearrange so that you have your quadratic in standard form. So we subtract the 9x and the 7 over and get 3x squared minus 11x minus 7. Now we can clearly see those constants a, b, and c. And remember the sign goes with the numbers. So a is positive 3, b is negative 11, and c is negative 7. So being able to do that is helpful in solving quadratics. So this first one, notice I need to subtract my 18 over, and then before you jump into the quadratic formula, if you can divide out a number in all three terms, do that because that will make your work easier. The numbers will be smaller and more manageable. So a is 4, b is negative 2, and c is negative 9. So let's plug those values into our quadratic formula. So x equals positive 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 9, all over 2 times 4, which is 8. I just usually go ahead and do that multiplication. Now the first thing you want to do is simplify what's underneath the radical before you touch anything else. So 148, we're going to see if it will break down into factors where one of them is a perfect square, and it does. So we take the square root of 4, which is 2, and 37 is left. Now the last thing is we're going to see if we can divide out any common factor between those integers, 2, 2, and 8. So we can divide all of those by 2. So we're left with 1 plus or minus the square root of 37 all over 4. This is actually two answers. 1 plus the square root of 37 divided by 4, and 1 minus the square root of 37 divided by 4. If we were graphing this, we would actually estimate that on our calculator and plot it on the x-axis. But if we're not graphing, we want to give our answers in what we call exact form, so we leave it in the square root. Now number 3, I know you can tell that we need to rearrange. So subtract the x over, and then pick out a, which is 10, b is negative 1, and c is 9. So here we go. X equals positive 1 plus or minus negative 1 squared minus 4 times 10 times 9, all divided by 2 times 10, which is 20. So just go ahead and do that math. Now underneath, you'll get 1 minus 360. It's not a mistake that you have a negative. So this is an example to help you see when you could use the imaginary unit with quadratic formula. So underneath the square root, think of that as negative 1 times 359. So the square root of negative 1 is I. So we get to take that out. So 1 plus or minus I times the square root of 359, all divided by 20. And we can't divide out any common factor between 1 and I and 20. So we always look at the numbers that are not under the square root. So these are our two final answers, and they are imaginary roots.